Welcome to Map It Marketing for small business owners who want to become more confident and capable in their marketing. I'm Rachel Klaver and I'm a small business owner just like you. I've learnt that there are so many different things that we are supposed to do all the time. And trying to work it all out is, quite frankly, often very confusing. In this podcast, we're going to explore what those things are and whether you need to pay attention to them. Ready? Let's get started. If you've ever hung around business Facebook groups before, you will have seen a post a little bit like this. Help me work out what's going wrong with my website. I've set up an e-commerce website. I've put all my pictures up and no one is buying from me. I've spent ages on this. I've probably spent all my money. Help me, please. That's where this episode's going to come in really handy for those people and anyone else out there, if that's you, who has an e-commerce store and wants to see more conversions, more sales coming from your website. I'm joined today by Tracey Smith. Tracey is one of our dear team members at Identify and she leads up our Australian division. She also happens to be a great friend and someone that I completely trust when it comes to e-commerce advice. Tracey is obsessed with helping small business owners get better at their marketing, especially around that e-commerce side, and is a wealth of information that she uses in her own side hustle with her own e-commerce business. I'm so excited to have this session with her. My biggest concern is how are we going to squeeze out all the information in such a short time? I promise you though, we're going to do our best. So join in, enjoy listening, and get ready to take quite a few notes because she's going to have the goodies. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate each and every one of you and appreciate the time that it takes for you to also come back to me and say that you're enjoying the show. Honestly, I read every one of those reviews and I save them in a special place for my dark moments to make me feel better. I'm super excited to welcome Tracey Smith today. Tracey, as I mentioned in the intro, is one of our integral parts of our team. When I was practicing doing the intros, I accidentally called her my special friend and then realized that sounded really creepy and weird. So we've cleared that up, made sure that we're not going to call her my special friend anymore. Both of our husbands probably wouldn't be that impressed. And I'm just going to throw it over to her soon. Thank you so much first, Tracey, for coming today. I mean, I know that we work together, so maybe you felt you had to. But I'm really looking forward to talking today about how to make e-commerce sites really sing and improve their conversion rates. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about you and why you're a good person to talk to about this today?
Okay, so I suppose I've been in business now for probably, I was trying to work it out the other day, but just over 20 years. And I have been in business with my husband. I've been in business for myself, but I've always had a huge focus on marketing. It's always been like the big area for me that really grabs my interest. Bookkeeping, not so much. I like to outsource that, but the marketing aspect. So when I'm talking to people about marketing, I've actually lived the life. I've had those sleepless nights thinking, oh my goodness, that job just cancelled, or, and those super highs where you go, wow, I've doubled my previous best month. This is amazing. Everything's working. So I understand, I suppose, firsthand the journey as a small business owner as much as someone who can then teach people about marketing as well.
And I think both of us, we talk and identify about how we say that we want people to become more confident and capable. That's something that you're really passionate about. And when it comes to e-commerce, you've got a particular interest in this, haven't you? That's a little bit slightly off working just with us, right?
Yeah, so I also have my own e-commerce business that I love to pieces. And it's kind of like a win-win because I get to have that thing that I've always wanted to do, but I also, it's a testing ground. So when I go back to my clients, I'm not just going to say, hey, I've read that this is really, really good for you to use. And, I've seen a video and webinar about it or whatever. I then take it and I test it myself. And then I can say, actually, that didn't really work. And the thing about that is a lot of what we get is so, and it's not a bad thing, but it's so Americanized. And the Australian and New Zealand markets are very, very different. They react differently. They have different values and cultures around small business. So sometimes we need to tweak what we're hearing about, you know, from overseas. And I get to do that with my e-com business.
I think that's really important. Like, we've obviously, for this podcast, we have listeners, because I can see where they're downloading and people are seeing it and listening to it from all over the world. And quite often, for those of us that, those of you listening in America, like, sorry about this, but we do have a very Americanized view of marketing, and each culture has its slightly different nuances and different ways of behaving. That means that sometimes that advice doesn't fit the culture in the places that we're primarily working, which is New Zealand and Australia.
Absolutely. And, you know, Australians and New Zealanders, we are very different to the rest of the world in terms of our outlook at life. So I think we have to approach our marketing the same way.
Yeah, I think that's probably very accurate. And we've actually got a podcast planned for that on the year about that topic, because we're both passionate about it. We're actually going to do a war, aren't we? Like, how Australia and New Zealanders like sell and buy better differently. It's going to be quite an interesting one. So, you know, holding up for that. So we've got a whole list of stuff. And I said in the intro, our biggest problem today is going to try and stick to the time, because we've got lots of stuff we can talk about. We made a bit of a list before we jumped on today of all the different things. But the one we wanted to start with first, and I'm going to get Tracey to talk about this, was something that people most often forget or don't do well on their e-commerce sites. In fact, I'm working with a business at the moment who's got retail stores and an e-commerce site. And this is one of the things that I pinpointed and said, you are missing this. And this is something that I always look for the minute I go to a website. And if you don't have it, I don't buy from you. What is it, Tracey?
The About Us page.
And why is it so important?
Well, here's the thing, is that the About Us page is, surprisingly for most people, the most visited page for a cold audience. So if they've not heard of you before and they're like, oh, wow, this has come up on number 1 in Google, or someone's told me to have a look, no one's going to buy from you if they don't trust you. And the first place they go to develop some trust is the About Us page.
And I think too, like with that, like I'm thinking about the fact that I love buying from people like you, you know, like when we talk about your business, I want to see people who are not a big corporate. Corporates know this. Like, I'm always devastated when I go, oh, those look like cool new potato chips at the supermarket. And you're like, wow, they're like from a really amazing like artisan chip maker. And you're like, wow, I'm going to buy these. And then you read down the bottom and then you can see the address and you realize that in New Zealand, it's like the Bluebird address. I think it's Wirry Road or something. And I'm like, damn it. They're tricking me. They're pretending they're an artisan, because we want to buy from artisans. We want to buy from small businesses. We want to have that human feeling. And because of social media, we've missed it. So that About Us page is us doing that, right? That's us standing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, you know, like with it, literally this happened to me yesterday, and I'm not even joking. I went to go and buy something. I went on this website, and the About Us page, there was the name of the person wasn't there. There was no photos. There was no story. And, you know, you can get away without the name and maybe a photo, but you've got to have the story then really strong to back it up, to say, I am a small business. And I noticed that in my e-commerce business is that, you know, being new to the market in some respects, people are getting to know me, and I have a huge value on customer service. It's just something I started my life in business in retail, and I see the value. But the amazing thing is, because I also like my Google Analytics, I watch which pages people go to, and that About Us page is up there every time. So if I'm not grabbing them at that point, bounce, they're off.
And it's the same with service-based businesses. It's one of the things I say to people, like with our business, like our team page, we only have like 4 pages on our website on both Identify Australia and New Zealand, besides the blog page. But both of them, our team page gets hit, and it's the one that people spend the most time on. It's obviously because our photos are so amazing, Tracey.
Right.
they scroll up and down. And it is because we're seeking that connection. Now, we're not talking marketing automation today. We'll talk about that another day. But I do want to just lift something up from there, because you shared in our Facebook group, Map It Marketing, as well, which, by the way, anyone can come and join that. And if you want to have a bit more of us and learning from us, you can come into that group and ask questions. So on Facebook. But you were in the Map It Marketing group, and you talked about how you have a welcome sequence to add to that About Us page, so that if anyone signs up, which we'll talk about in a minute, that sign up thing, signs up to your email, they get a welcome sequence. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's the results that what you're getting from that? Do you get sales from that?
I get 46% of my sales come from, number one, from my email marketing, and number two, 33% of my total sales happen at some point in, I have, I think, 3 emails at the moment that are in that welcome sequence. They happen from one of those emails.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I feel like going,
amazing.
The incredible thing. I'm showing my age now. Every time I say that's incredible, I hear that tune in my head. But I think like that to me is such the power of the About Us, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's in your order, in your welcome, but definitely on your website, having that there. It is such a simple thing to add value and trust. Yep. And it is all about building trust, isn't it? Like all the things that we're talking about today are all things that make people feel safe, because we're giving you the trust that the product's going to be good, that it's going to be delivered, that you're not taking our money and running away over to China or Russia, or I don't know, we can't go anywhere in New Zealand, Rarotonga, I think, or maybe Sydney. So like, that's what we want to make sure that we're not doing. We want to make sure we're trusting it. So definitely that About Us page. So let's talk about other things that make that trust kind of happen. What about things like user experience in general? Like what would you say would be some key things to make it easier for people to buy from us?
So I suppose at the end of the day, they need to be able to contact you when they want to contact you. And so if you don't, I have a sign up thing on the bottom of every single page of my website. So it doesn't matter if it's an About Us, it doesn't matter if it's the front page, wherever they go, at any point they can contact me. I also have the little chat now, and you can get that through so many avenues. And it doesn't mean that they can reply, that I'm going to reply instantly. And I happen to get a lot of messages at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm tempted sometimes to reply if I see it, but I try not to. But you know what? I have a message that says, I'm currently not here, but I value your message and I'm going to get back to you straight away.
So that message, are you personally using Facebook chat for that one?
I'm using Zoho.
Because of course you are. We use Zoho because we're Zoho partners. So that makes sense. We also use Zoho on ours. But for people that don't have Zoho, I normally do recommend just to use the Facebook Messenger chat, simply because you already have a Facebook page and they go straight to your chat. I have seen that if people don't put their details in, sometimes you get like a random messenger thing and you can't go back to it, which is a bit annoying. Whereas Zoho does manage to strip that pretty well and get that information out of them. But chat is, surprisingly for me, is one of those things that I personally was like, who would use it? But people use chat all the time, and it's a great converting tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got, and this was actually through Facebook Messenger chat. So this was the one that pops up on your Facebook page. I actually converted someone who was simply making an inquiry, nothing more than that. And just by being available and helping them it wasn't immediate, but they ended up turning into a $350 sale.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, yep. And so that's literally user experience. She was able to ask the question she had and get an answer, and it wasn't immediate. It was over a space of about 3 days of backwards and forwards, but it was well worth it.
Now, while we're talking about that, I'm majorly in a bit of a obsessive thing at the moment about frequently asked questions pages, FAQ pages. Do you have one of those on your website?
I don't. But here's a disclaimer. I do have a page that has all that information.
Yes, that's right. You do. You have all this stuff on there. Yeah. But that is something that you can do around things like shipping and stuff, isn't it? It's okay.
Well, I have that on a different page. And what that is my next thing to do on the website, is to pull those super relevant questions that people are asking onto one single page rather than they have to search for it.
Now, I'm really pleased that we've admitted, like we have the same. I often, when I'm doing a strategy with a client and I'm going through stuff, I go, look, I'm sorry, I just have to hang on. And I've got this book now, which is called Rachel's Guilt Book. And I write down the stuff that I have been telling clients and I go, finally, this is the day I've got to do this. I'm acting all holier than thou with the FAQ page, but we both know I've been advising people to do it for years, and I personally just did our one 2 weeks ago. So let's just make sure that people know. And I think one of the things I always say is, you just need to be a little bit less shit than your competitors. That's one thing that's important. But the second thing is, if you're getting leads and regular stuff and everything's going really well, it's okay if there's stuff that you're missing. This is just about, if stuff isn't at the level you're at, this is the stuff you can add in to improve your sales or to improve your conversions.
That's right.
Which is really important, right? So it's okay that you didn't have I'm totally enabling you. But FAQs are great too, right? Like FAQs is another place that you can have things like, one of the ones I look at often, especially because I like shopping from overseas places, is things like, so if I'm buying from an Australian company, I want to see that they ship to New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or returns policies for overseas orders. So all those sort of things, having those on an FAQ page means that people it's kind of buyer beware as well, that they are responsible for reading that information. But also it means that you are eliminating objections as you walk through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's what we talked about is like that usability, I suppose, is that just to make it like I said, honestly, I do have that info, but it's in a terms and conditions page. No one's going to want to read it. They tick a little box to say they have. I'm sure.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. But, it is about pulling that info out so that if there is that customer that says, I had one yesterday who emailed me and said, do you send to a PO box? Well, yeah, I do. It's not even an issue. And that's something I need to have on that page.
It's a good thing to have, because some people might be going, they wouldn't send something to a PO box, so I'm not even going to buy something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is all about just removing those things. Now, we did talk briefly about, we obviously both have a bias around particular website platforms.
Yeah.
We both we have probably the same biases, and I've softened my stance on this. I used to be like, it's Woo or it's BigCommerce or it's Shopify, and those are my three. Same with you; those are my big ones that I would say good, and that's partly because both of us, we love marketing automation, and we know that those three integrate really well with that. Yeah. But regardless of that, our big thing is, if you're a small business with an e-commerce business, we really say don't do the custom build, right?
Right. Oh, you know what? Absolutely. And I like to pride myself that I'll get into things and sometimes completely muck things up by playing in amongst a bit of code and adding.
I would never do that.
I made all of my products out of stock the other night, and it took me about 12:30 at night to get them all.
I love it.
But, the thing is, even with my limited knowledge of coding and that kind of stuff, and I would never say I know it all, I still would do absolutely everything in my power to keep everything as what we term out of the box, because custom, then you're restricted to who can fix a mistake like that. If my stuff wasn't all out of the box, I couldn't have gone and put everything back in stock. I would have had to have paid someone to go and do it for me.
And you must have full admin access to your account. You shouldn't be letting anyone, even if not technical, you must always have full admin access to your account so you can do those sort of things, which is so important.
And so can I add to that? Have a trusted backup full admin as well.
Very important. That's the same with Facebook business pages. Let's just say that now too. You should always have a secondary admin. If you don't know anyone, rope a friend in or someone just to be a business admin, because if you're the only one and you somehow lose access, you are stuck. So always have two admins. That is essential. 100% agree. Now, with those platforms, and we talked a little bit about integration, and people will hear the word integration and go, that sounds a little bit difficult. We're just talking about ways to make it talk to things, aren't we? So we want it to be able to talk to Facebook, so you can do catalog ads and things like that if you want to later on.
Without having to have a huge amount of experience on websites. It's literally, on Shopify, it's just add a little app and it takes care of it, and it takes you 5 seconds to do it. WooCommerce, it's add a plugin, and, again, it just does it all for you. That's what we're talking about, when just letting them
easy.
You having to do it.
Yeah, and there are platforms out there that are cheap, and people often want to have the cheap one. They're like, I'm stressed about the expense of the WooCommerce or the building an initial one, or that it's not ongoing, or with Shopify that ongoing cost, and I want cheap. But what happens is cheap often costs you a lot more time and a lot more developer costs when you need to get extra people to help you. If you're spending $150, $200, $300 at a time to get someone to help you, if you took that over a year, it would be more than the amount of money you'd be paying for those other out-of-the-box solutions.
Absolutely. I think my first ever e-com website, which I had built, holy moly, this is going back. This is probably about 20 years ago. And it was back before the days of Shopify and all that. So you had no choice but to get someone to build it. And I remember even at the time to even put, because there was nothing out of the box, to even put a credit card facility on there was going to cost me minimum $5,000. And
it is so accessible now, which is great, but it also means that a lot of us do it without thinking about all the other stuff that we've got to do, right? Which makes it hard. So, it'll still cost you that much if you got a custom build done. Oh, yeah, it would.
Why would you go and get all the plugins and use the out-of-the-box solutions?
Yeah, I think that that's so important. It does mean, too, small businesses are evolving and changing. So if you want to change your About Us page or change bits and pieces or the layout a little bit, it's much easier to do that. The benefit is it's much easier. The negative is you could sit there tinkering for days and just get it changing all the time and no one knows what you're doing. So there is definitely a middle ground in there somewhere. Now, we've talked about the platform. Now, I know that and we talked about those sign-up forms, but we didn't go back and talk about why that's so important. Why is it so important to have like a sign-up? And should you have a pop-up, or what are you doing?
Okay, so I have a pop-up.
And everyone hates pop-ups, right?
Well, they say they do, but
what happens?
80% of my database has come from that pop-up.
Yeah, that's right.
80% of that database. And my database in probably, I don't know, under a year, this particular one, I have built up to over 2,000 people.
That's amazing. Do you know, I've just made a note here. Add pop-up to identify marketing site.
Love it.
Because the thing is, so much of this isn't just for e-commerce, is it?
No, absolutely not. And what the pop-up is going to do is going to look different for every business. I've worked with so many different clients, and when we're talking about email marketing and that kind of thing, we're talking about those sign-up forms. We do have them looking very, very different, and it's what their outcomes are about. But the other thing is, that doesn't mean that's all you need. So no. I was watching what was happening through PageSense, which is like Hotjar, like we use that kind of thing to see what people are doing. But I was still noticing that 80% of people were still shutting that. Well, I think it was about 76% was still closing that pop-up. So I thought, well, and the reason was they were probably a cold audience. They'd never heard of me, and they're not trusting it to give me their email. So then I'm like, well, I still need to get those people. And so I added that sign-up form to every single. There is not a page I can find so far on my website that doesn't have the footer sign-up. And the rest of my sign-ups come from there.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned a word before, Hotjar.
Yes.
So I love Hotjar. We do, because we both use Zoho. We use PageSense, and it's very much the same. If anyone's come to one of our Map It events that we run, they'll see us do a live test of it. We get everyone on, and then I show them how creepy it can be. It's good for marketers. It just feels a bit creepy. Now, I'm going to explain what it does, and then you can kind of say why you're seeing it. So from my understanding, Hotjar and PageSense, what they do is anyone comes on the website, they screen record your behaviours. And I always need to say to everyone when they're listening to this and they freak out, we don't see you in your pajamas. We don't see you. We just see your actions, and we don't know who you are. Unless you're in our database and you've come back again and we have your details, we don't know it's you. And I promise you, I'm not looking and checking and going, oh, look, Tracey's on our website again. That's a bit freaky, right? So we don't do that. It's stalking. FY pro tip, don't, like, if you see someone in your CRM coming back to your website, don't say hello to them and say their name, because they're just going to leave and never come back. What are you learning from Hotjar? Like, why do we put it on? Like, it is free. We've got one e-commerce retail client who's got so much traffic, they pay around $80 US a month for it. But the vast majority of our e-commerce and our business clients wouldn't have to pay for it because they just don't get that enough traffic to go on their website. But what do you think of the benefits of using Hotjar? It's hotjar.com, and I'll make sure we put it in the show notes.
Yep. Yeah, so what I like to watch on there is I take note of the bounce rate on my website. So Google Analytics give you that really quickly and easily.
Yeah.
So then I say, okay, then.
Oh, can you just explain the bounce rate for me? Because I know lots of people need to know what that means.
Yeah, so the bounce rate is basically someone comes on your website, has a quick look, and then closes it down. They're done. They're, one-page wonders. Off they go.
Oh.
So what you want to do is you want to have the lowest bounce rate possible, which means you need to give them every opportunity possible to keep navigating throughout your website, because every new page that they visit is creating more trust with you, whether you're a builder or whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or you've got a small homemade craft business, whatever you've got with your website. So the thing that I watch for also is what they're clicking on. So it might mean that you change the order of your menu, because the maybe if you're e-commerce or if you're the service or the product you really want to push, they're not clicking on enough. So change the order. I was noticing that only something like I think it was 84 or something % of people never went past what I called the first fold. So the first fold is that first part of the page that comes up.
That means that it's when you scroll down, you have to scroll down after you open it up on a desktop. That's that first fold. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was gutted. I'm like, but this is amazing. I've got this. And what I had too much going on in that first fold, trying to jam it in. So I have completely pulled it back and simplified it. And now I'm slowly seeing that rate come down as people start scrolling and see more. So
yeah, it's an incredible tool. I with Hotjar, one of the things that I found was amazing was I was running a Map It event in a small town in New Zealand, and I was demonstrating it and going through and showing, look, when people get to the top of our page, besides the bounce rate, we get 87% of people actually wait to get the page loaded. And so there they are. And then I scrolled down, and right down the bottom, which is where my sign up was, or my get in contact was, it was 17%. And someone said to me, why don't you just put your call to action down the bottom up the top? Because obviously I'm such a great marketer. I'd thought about this myself. I was like, damn it, that's a good idea. And so I changed it during the session, and within 24 hours, our inquiry rates doubled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was just putting it in a different place.
Yeah.
So that's what that does, doesn't it? Is you're going and saying, look, one of the things I said to a client yesterday was, what are the products that you have that have the biggest profit margins?
Mm.
And they said, oh, this, and this. I said, great. Are they on the front page?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I just put stuff that I like on there. But I was like, no, we put the stuff with the biggest profit margins because what people see is what they buy. So put the stuff that you're going to make the most money with, or it could be the stuff you want to get rid of. So you might put your sales section there.
Absolutely. But that goes back to those, I suppose, those initial ways that we looked at retail and bricks and mortar, and that's the world I grew up in. And if it was raining outside, we moved our umbrellas and our raincoats. I worked for a large menswear chain. We moved them to the front of the store. And if it was really, really sunny and hot, and even if that stock was on sale because it's, autumn or something, and we get this crazy hot day, we moved all of that stuff to the front of the store, because on that day, that's what people want to see. And that's your website is absolutely no different.
And that's a really important thing. It's not a set and forget, is it? This is an organism that we need to be changing and moving. And I think that's one of the things that shock people the most. They kind of been schooled that we set up the website, build it, and they will come. And it's not the truth at all.
No,
it's you have to do so much work.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. I mean, luckily, when it's your own business all the time, you can, I don't know about other people, but I go down the rabbit hole of going too far, and normally I'll get a nudge, hey, it's midnight, you need to get off the laptop now and leave your website alone. But
I'm like that with this podcast, believe me. I'm starting to get the, what, you're up at 4:00 again to do some planning? What are you talking about? I'm like,
But the other cool thing about Hotjar and that, it's not just that side of it. It's not just the services and the sales side of it. So what I also saw was my Instagram, the little added thing that you could see my Instagram at the bottom of my website page was slowing it down. But what I was also seeing is that no one was seeing it. So Google would have been, that algorithm would have been working against me because it was taking too long, that one kind of thing. And here's another little tool I'm going to mention, GT Metrics actually pointed that out to me.
What's GT Metrics?
You put your URL in and it will tell you issues that you have with your website.
Oh, that's also, is it like a Google thing?
It's just like a thing, a platform, I suppose. And a lot of like web designers and those kinds of guys use it, and that because it is quite techie. I will add that.
So let's just clarify. This is for anyone that loves that techie side.
Yes.
Because one of the differences between Tracey and I is that I love content. I am like, when we go on the marketing spectrum, I'm on the content, that beautiful, creative, amazing side there. And Tracey's, I'm going to use the words beautiful and amazing for her as well, because I'm not trying to, Tracey's totally on the geeky, analytical, beautiful, amazing side there. Like, marketing is a spectrum.
Yeah.
Like it is. And often you are more one than the other. So like some of you are going, wow, she asked a question like what GT. I am not a technical marketer. I struggle with this stuff a lot. I'm really good at content. I'm great at doing this stuff like podcasts and blogs and stuff. When it comes to technical stuff, I have trouble. So I would outsource the stuff if I was the business owner. Tracey, however, would potentially outsource some of the creative stuff for her business or the ads and things like that, because that's not how her brain works, and but she loves the analytical side. Is that right, Tracey?
Yeah. So I love that creative side, but I know I can only go so far with it. Yeah. And I know I've been really proud of something, for example, and you've shown me something Susie's created, and I've gone, oh my goodness, like haven't I said to you before, I need to get Susie to do some of mine.
Yeah, so Susie's my daughter. She works with us and she is a total whiz at Canva. She's
amazing.
She does this amazing stuff. She does all the workbooks and stuff that we use, and she's just great at it. And, she's also like 20, so she can do it like in 3 seconds. Chops.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Finally, I'm going to get her to listen to a podcast. I'm going to say, you were mentioned in this one. You got to listen to this one. Children don't care about my podcast. They're like, oh, yeah, right. Another crazy thing my mother's doing. This and TikTok. Final straw.
Yeah.
So we've got this. We've talked about quite a lot of stuff. We talked about the About Us page. We talked about pop-up forms and user experience and sign-up forms. We've talked a little bit about the platform, and we haven't mentioned Google Analytics, because we'll talk about that last thing. And then what we'll do is we'll go into something around the product descriptions, because I really want to talk about that because it fits in with SEO. So, which is search engine optimization, guys. I'm really big at trying not to get too technical and stuff, but let's just have a brief little chat about Google Analytics, because it's free, isn't it?
It is absolutely free. You literally just need to stick the little bit of code and they walk you through the steps on how to get it onto your website. And you know what? Even if you don't, hand it off to your website developer and let them do it. It's literally a 2-minute job for them.
Yeah, and if you don't have a website developer, this is where it's great to cultivate a relationship with someone in a Facebook group or something, and then say, I'm not a technical person. I just need someone I can call in to do those jobs and just get that relationship going. Because those little bits can feel like, and make a list of them. Like if you've gone, wow, there's a lot of stuff we've talked about today I don't understand, go through and make a list and then do a call out and find someone to fix those things. Because I think that's the thing I've learned too. I spent ages trying to create a Zoho form about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was getting very frustrated. I literally spent pretty much a whole Sunday trying to do it. I was trying to integrate it, which is not my thing. I can do the colors and stuff, but not the integration. And then Rod, my husband, which Tracey also knows, but I'm telling you guys listening, he is the Zoho king. Like he knows it all around Zoho. And he comes in and he's like, fixing it in 2 minutes. I'm like, I hate you, but I love you. And I think that's that thing, is sometimes we can get stuck in doing stuff that isn't, when we're just trying to do it for our own business, it's so easy to get stuck in the stuff that's not our skill set.
Well, we say that in our strategies, though, to people, you don't have to be everything. You don't have to know everything. but just do what you do really, really well, and then find someone else who does it. And the other thing is, like, I read a Richard Branson book because I love reading all those, how they got where they are kind of books. And he says it, he acknowledged in the very beginning, he knew nothing when he started Virgin Airlines about airlines, but he hired the best people that he knew, but he knew a lot about marketing and he knew a lot about running a business. Small business owners are no different. They're no different at all.
It's so true. It is so true. And we it is cheaper. People go, I don't, it's going to cost me money, but it's that time factor. If you're spending a day doing something that someone else will take half an hour to do, just get someone else to do it.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about those things. Now I want to talk, because it's content. I want to talk about captions. I have recently worked with 3 retailers who have had me look at them with a look of, oh, really? When I've gone to their website, because they're saying to me, I don't understand it. I've got all my products on. They've got beautifully, technically brilliant websites. They're very smooth. But then you click on the image, and one for a start, often the image isn't clear. Like it's a poor image, and images are so important because our eyes are we're wanting to create that need center, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Things are clear.
Yep. And sometimes what can happen, and I hate to say go down that techie road again, but sometimes when you're uploading images to your websites, there's little ways to get your website to run faster, but it can damage the look of those images. So you've got to be careful of that as well. But, it's like when you go out for dinner, people say you eat with your eyes. Well, it's no different on a website.
Yeah, and I think that people want to see, like I often say, if you've got clothing, if you've got one static image of a product, I want to see what it looks like from 2 sides. Or if you've, like I often say, why have you got a picture of someone sitting down on that top and it's got a jacket over it and things like that? That's a cool contextual picture, but I want to see what it looks like just straight on, side on, back, and see how it flows. I want to see, I want to kind of get an idea of what it would look like on different bodies, potentially, if you've got a size diverse range. And there are businesses like Little Party Dress that does it really well. They'll often show different ones, or ModCloth, they'll show different sizes. So, but images are really important. And then it comes down to captions. And here's a really important thing. If you're listening today and you're buying products from a wholesaler who supply you with descriptions, do not use their descriptions. I know it's tempting. Even if they're good descriptions, do not use them. And why would that be, Tracey?
Because then it becomes duplicate content, and Google hates duplicate content. And if they were up there first, or another competitor selling the same products is up there first, then they have more authority over you, and it just makes your SEO work that you're putting in the other areas like so much harder to get anywhere.
So SEO stands for search engine optimization, or I often call it Google optimization. But it's just trying to find ways for people to find your products or goods or your services or your business. So you want to make sure that those words in there are words that people want to see and read when they're searching. So maybe like this morning, I think because it was cold, I think I did a Google search for chunky, warm, knit, ripped cardigan. So it was like all of those lines. And then all these things come up. And then I'm like, crap, I'm only getting size 10s. I need to go plus size, chunky, so you're defining it. So you can have those keywords in behind your photos and all those sort of things, but you need to have those words in your description as well. If you know that those are words that people are going to want, but the words also have to evoke a feeling. And I think one of the businesses that does this the best is e-commerce is definitely modcloth.com. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go and read some of their product descriptions. One of the things they do is they rename all their products. So if they're buying from a particular brand, the brand is still there. They're not getting rid of the brand. So they might have like Princess Highway or something like that. But they rename the product so that they own that product name. No one else can have that product name. And then they describe it and they talk about what size it fits and things like that, or the colors and the dual colors and all those different things. Because I'm not in your store, I can't smell it, I can't pick it up, I can't feel how soft or rough or whatever it is to touch. But if you tell me that in the caption, then I'm going to fall in love with that product.
Absolutely. And if you are getting, say, if you have quite a generic product or a generic service and that kind of thing, and if you are getting, say, products from a manufacturer, take what they're giving you in that content and just summarize it. Like we all learned at school how to, write an essay and summarize things and change it. So, you'd get 30 different versions of the same essay in class. do that with your product description. So use that as a starting base. And like you said, add those keywords that people will be searching for in there. And the other thing that Google is huge on is conversational tone. So you will see more and more at the moment that if you do a search, you'll get that result that has that highlighted yellow kind of where you've asked a question, and I'm right into like the Tudors and all that royally kind of stuff. And so I was searching something about trying to understand last night how it all
it's quite complicated. Their family structure was very complicated.
But my result, when I put in that search, the result came up with a short paragraph that was all highlighted. And the reason was that paragraph answered my question, and the keywords were there throughout the paragraph, but it wasn't as phrase specific as it used to be. So if you keep that conversational tone in those descriptions, you're going to have a much better chance with Google as well.
Yeah, so I think like we've talked about such a broad range of things, but I'm just going to go through and recap a few things. So we talked about having a really good personable about us page. So starting that personable thing right from the beginning is important.
Can I add to there as well, making sure that on that page you've got lots of links to other pages so people don't bounce off at that point.
Really good. In fact, you should have options to go from page to page within the pages, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked a little bit about that. We talked about having chat and Google Analytics and all those kind of techie things. And I've written down a few things for the show notes like Hotjar and GT metrics and stuff that I'll make sure that people have got access to if they want to have a look at those things. And we talked about the importance of a pop-up and even though they, people complain about them, they definitely work. Like if you ask in a Facebook group,
they do.
Do people like pop-ups? They're like, no. And everyone's like, but it works. So there's this weird thing here, and I struggle with this as a marketer because I always want to have good user experience, but there's this line between good user experience and what works.
And this is the thing. They work for the people who want to hear from you, and they're the people that you want to sign up.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. I love that. And we talked a little bit about Google Analytics and having that sign-up form as well down the bottom, so you've got those opportunities to do that. We haven't talked a lot about, did we mention Afterpay? I can't remember if we mentioned Afterpay. No, so we'll just talk a little bit. So one of the things that I do think stop people as well is that we talked a little bit about user experience, but that difficulty in walking through the journey of buying, and then it's really difficult. Like one of the things I did last year as a dear friend of mine has, and a mate, she's an artist, and she had these beautiful prints, and I wanted to buy 4 of them, which was, quite a big thing for me to do. And I got really frustrated with her site because I'd add to cart, but there was no cart for me to click. So and then I would get lost and I would get back to the page, but when I wanted to pay, there was no cart anywhere because she had messed a setting up somewhere. And so I got frustrated and left. And I do leave sites where I can't complete the purchase. It's got to be really simple. Yeah. And luckily for her, she was a good friend. So I said, look, I didn't buy. And she went, oops, I'll go fix it. But most of the time, I'm just going to be like, oh, stuff that. I'll go find something else, right? Yeah. That ease is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, websites are so complex these days and you don't always know what's going on with them. If, something's conflicting or something's happened. I, through my marketing automation, have a survey that I ask people after they've made a purchase to ask them. And one of the questions is, what is the, how easy did you find it to get what you needed on my website? And I've had someone say it was super easy. Someone else say it was a bit difficult. And then I had someone comment and say, yes, all of that was easy because I give them about 10 days before I send this out. And I said, but I never got a confirmation email. And I was like, what's happened here? Now, this was a tech thing. It was above my head. I went back to my web host and they sorted it all out for me. But I would never have known that wasn't happening. Now, that creates that negative, she was like, oh, but luckily the product arrived really fast, so obviously I knew you'd got the order. But what if it was a product that had a slow delivery and they never got that confirmation? And
I do think a lot of people don't ask their customers just in case they have some bad stuff. No one wants to have bad press, but it all helps us make things better, right?
That's right.
I ask it at the end of every webinar. I always have a form like that. What's one thing I could improve? And I'm always like, please say nothing. Please say nothing. But, like we started a relationship because you gave me some really true, honest feedback about what we were doing with you years ago, right? So that, that does help. You need to listen to feedback and it makes you better.
Well, the thing was in that situation, I would never have volunteered that information. You came to me and asked me, and then I said, actually, this was my experience, and look how much has come from that,
It's been amazing. Well, no, you're part of the team. So when I was talking about that user experience and making it easy, we, Afterpay, Lay-by, OmniPay, all those different ones. OmniPay, OxyPay. I'm a Generation Xer, so I'm old. I'm 50 this year, and I grew up with Lay-by, real Lay-by, where you go into the shop and pay $20 a week until you can have your stuff. Probably $5 a week back then. And I have a real thing of you just buy what you can afford. Like I don't like using my credit card or those sort of things. So I have a philosophical issue with Lay-by and Afterpay. And I know a lot of my clients and your clients, our clients, struggle with this whole idea of are we encouraging it? But I still say now we need to have it. And would you agree? Yeah. Do you feel that too?
Absolutely. It's not. Well, the thing is, even with my e-com business, most of them don't want to use it, and I am denied. And I was the same as you. I'm like, why do I even need it? Like, I don't have it, and I put it on, and I've made sales through it at the end of the day. And you know what? My job isn't to second guess someone else's choices in life. My job is to offer a service or a product and sell it. So if that's how they choose to purchase it, it's actually got nothing to do with me.
I love that. I love that you've said my job is not to decide how they're going to buy from me in that regard. Because I think that's true. Like our job is not to manage somebody else's finances. It's not like we're encouraging them to waste all their money on some sort of weird pyramid scheme or anything, is it? We're just saying, here's our product. If you want to buy it with Afterpay or Lay-by, you can.
That's it. And it's I suppose that kind of thing of if our job is to offer a service or offer a product, then why are we putting hurdles in our way to stop people from buying it?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Now, I think this has been so useful, and I've got lots of notes I'm going to share with people through this in the show notes as well, which will be great. But Tracey, it's a bit weird today because normally this is where I say, now if they'd like to work with you in your business and promote your business, what would they do? But I would like you to talk a bit about, for you, if people are listening to this today, e-commerce businesses in particular, any business, but particularly e-commerce businesses who know they need help with their marketing and you would like to work with them, what would you say to them? Like, what would you like to do? What would you like to work with? What sort of businesses? To identify. Yeah. To us. I'm being a little bit weird here, but anyway.
I suppose I love helping e-commerce businesses, and I really love the trades industries as well, because I think that sometimes people think that they're worlds apart, and at the end of the day, it's not. It's about taking an initial concept and tweaking it for your individual business. And a cool overflow of that is one of our clients, actually, one of my first strategies I ever did with Identify. He told me about this cool thing, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it with everyone, but he called it Donut December, and he's a trade business, and he had this thing, and he said he did it 10 years ago. Anyone who booked a job with him in December, and he was more B2B kind of stuff for other tradies he worked for, he took the donuts for morning tea.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he said 10 years later people still talk about it. My thing was, why aren't you still doing it then?
Yeah, I know. Me too. I'll be thinking that too.
But I've taken that then and I've thought a lot about it, and I'm trialing that with my e-commerce.
I see that. You're offering a morning tea.
Yes. So any groups that people can nominate their group that, is quite closely related to my e-commerce business and say, yes, we meet up on these days and we would love a morning tea. And that's where that kind of cross-pollination can happen with marketing ideas. Yeah, and so that's what I love. I love getting in that deep side of things and talking to an e-commerce business or a trades business or, those kinds of things and say, hey, I know how we can do something, but it's not, you don't stick just because this is what my industry always does. No. think outside the box.
Exactly. Now, we have our Identify Marketing websites on our show notes, but because you're based in Australia, we have a weird thing where we work with Australians and New Zealanders and we cross over, even though we've got the two websites. But if you've got Australian in particular people who want to get in touch with you from here, because they can get in touch with you through our New Zealand side as well, what's the best way of doing that for them?
The best way is that they can email me direct at tracy.smith@identifymarketing.com.au, or they can jump onto our identifymarketing.com.au website and just flick us an email and flick us a message, and we'll be in contact. So
awesome. And for those of you're going to say something, yeah?
Yes, or join our Facebook Muppet group, because honestly, we are both in there all the time and answering questions and talking, and we have the most amazing community of business owners in there. I love it.
And also on Tuesdays, you always do really awesome stuff, often for e-commerce businesses, with a little video with some tricks, don't you? Which I love. The other thing is, for anyone that's still listening who's going, oh my gosh, they're rabbiting on about Identify Marketing way too much right now. But if for anyone that's still listening and interested in being involved, we have regular free webinars and events. Called the Becoming Confident series. We both run live events. Mine are through New Zealand. At the moment, Tracy's are just in the Albury-Wodonga space, but they're there. And so you can come along to those and learn from us as well if you're based in New Zealand, Australia, or you can come to our webinars. Yesterday we ran one and we had people from Singapore and Canada and America there, and it was amazing. So that is always an option. So you can do that as well. So Tracy, thank you so much for all your amazing knowledge and working through this. I've got a plethora of things I'm going to make sure we mention. I know for those people that are listening today, we've bounced around a lot of ideas, but it's talked about a lot. There is so much. And in the coming episodes, we're going to go a bit deeper into some of these things and just take them a little bit more linear and take them bit by bit. But it just shows you, when you're not getting those sales, there is just so many areas that you can look at improving to get those changes.
And it's just one thing a day. I had a meeting with someone yesterday and she was feeling overwhelmed about how many things that she had to do from, that she knows she's got to do. And I just said to her, one small task a day. And at the end of 2 weeks, when we go and talk again, it's one of my coaching clients, I'm going to say, you're going to look back and say, hey, Tracy, I've actually done all of these things over the last 2 weeks. So just think one thing a day.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy, for coming and being part of this today.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, I just spent most of the afternoon writing down all the notes from this podcast, and wow, we managed to fit in a lot of information in that last hour. I hope you're all breathing after all that information coming into your brain. I want to share with you just a little bit about why having that website is so important as part of your marketing map. But first, let me just quickly tell you who's coming on our podcast next week. Casey Hill is from Bonjoro, and he's going to be talking to us about how to use personalized video to improve trust, to build relationships and increase conversions. And trust me, I've been using Bonjoro for about 3 years, and boy, does it work. In fact, after I recorded that podcast with Casey, I immediately upped my use of it, and I've been sending Bonjoros all over the place. So do come and listen to it. Even if you don't want to use Bonjoro, the lessons in there are amazing. Now, let's get back to that website. So in a marketing map, when I talked about this in episode 1 and 2, I always put the website right in the middle of that marketing map, because this is your opportunity to allow people who've built trust with you and that you've done promotion to, and they've built that relationship with you, to come to a point where they then can decide, do they want to go deeper into that relationship with you? So your website needs to reflect your values. It needs to clearly state who you are, and it needs to be easy for people to get in contact with you or buy from you. So that's why this is so important. Take the stuff in the show notes and everything that you've heard today and apply it to your business. Thanks for tuning in today to Map It Marketing with me, Rachel Klaver. Make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you want notes or information about today's podcast, go to rachelklaver.com/podcast for more information.